Greetings and welcome to the DbD Killer Guide. Now before we get into the guide, I want to preface the video by saying all the footage is from the mobile version of DbD. Right now the sounds are bugged to a point of me being incapable of playing Killer without tearing my hair out, so that is the reason behind the mobile footage. However, these tips can be used on any version of the game bar a couple of killers that aren't unlocked when you start in DbD Mobile. Anyway, this guide will discuss all the things you need to know before going off to work for the entity, such as the killers to choose from, the flow of the game, the strategies most killers can use, and some tips and tricks to look out for. Also, just like in the Survivor guide, this guide is mostly targeted at people who want to get those juicy 4 kills. If you want to just have fun, go for it, and do what you find fun. Sometimes crushing a team isn't that fun, so if you want to have fun it might be good to ease up on the things I talk about. Otherwise, if you want to win, this guide should give you some good basis on what a good killer does, no matter who they pick. With that out of the way, this guide is gonna be a doozy, so strap in, cue up, and let's start hooking. The first thing to pick is what killer should you play. Well, all killers can be good in some circumstances, except for maybe one, but this means you can really pick whoever. Starting out, you only have access to the Trapper, Wraith, Billy, Nurse, and Huntress, unless you are on console and are lucky enough to get a few more. To start, the most simple to pick up and play is the Wraith. The hardest is the Nurse, but the Nurse is classified as the most powerful killer when played well. However, I urge you to try out any of the killers you can, and see which one you like. As far as add-ons goes, each killer has their own aside from Billy and Leatherface, which share add-ons currently, so for me to go over all of them would take way too much time. However, in the description I will link Darva's guide to all the add-ons. From there you can find the killer you want to play and see which add-ons are good and why. From there, let's go through what the flow of a regular game will be. But before we start, let's go through an important part of DbD as a whole. DbD is a time game. Your job as killer is to sacrifice all 4 survivors before the exits are opened. The survivors control the time until the exits are powered, however that doesn't mean you can't slow them down. Most things you do as killer have the goal of preventing the gens from being done, or slowing the game in some way. Naturally, the better you do as killer, the slower the gens will go, and the worse you do, the faster they will get done. With that in mind, let's go through a regular game. First thing is to find a survivor. Usually they will spawn far away from you, so going to the furthest generator is usually a safe place to check. There are a couple of maps that can spawn survivors close to you, but almost always there will be a survivor far from you. From there, once you find a survivor, usually you want to down them as quickly as possible. The main goal in all of it is to make the survivors no-do generators, since once a survivor is on a hook, someone needs to save them. Then if you chase someone else, that's only one survivor that could be doing a gen, and even then that survivor might also be going to save the person on the hook. This is why the better you do, the fewer gens get done. And from there it is just a cycle of downing and hooking, creating more pressure, until all the survivors are gone. Really, the most crucial part of playing killer is getting people on the hook, or downed as quickly as possible. This is where mind games come into play. Basically, a mind game is doing something that the survivor doesn't expect you to do, providing an easy hit. These come in many forms, however the one almost every killer is capable of doing is manipulating your red light. All killers, while not in stealth, have a red light in front of them, usually pointing survivors to be able to know where you are looking, and if they are in danger of getting hit. You can use this to your advantage by hiding the light, or manipulating it in a way that the survivor thinks you are doing something, but you are doing something else. Knowing that you need to gauge what kind of survivors you're up against and what kinds of things they will fall for. Because if you're against a survivor that never turns around, cutting them off can be very easy to do, with no mind game needed. So just take into account what the experience level of the survivor is, and then figure out what kinds of tricks will they fall for. Lastly, without getting into killer-specific guides, let's talk about some general tips for all killers. Tip 1. Know who you are up against. You can constantly gain knowledge about the kinds of survivors you're up against through the whole game, and even in the lobby. If you see certain items, like medkits or toolboxes, you know either who to target first if given the chance, or you can realize that people might be healing alone, or quicker, as a team. Then, as said before, you can gauge the survivor's experience level by chasing them a couple of times. Tip 2. Know when to retarget. If someone is giving you lots of trouble in chase, it might be best to leave them for last and go after their teammates doing gens. A lot of teams will have a dedicated distractor that wants to be chased. So don't give them their wish, go after the people who aren't as good as running away to get easy downs. Tip 3. Manage pressure. If survivors are getting stuff done quickly, you know that you aren't creating enough pressure, so it might be good to leave someone on the ground that you just downed. Then if you have someone on the hook, go check if someone is headed for a save. This is a simple way of creating enough pressure that no gens can be done until someone is saved. So gauge what survivors are currently probably doing, and figure out how to push them away from gens. Tip 4. Keep survivors on their toes. The most gens get done when a survivor gets comfortable. So don't let them. Keep them moving, saving, or running. The less you let people catch a break, the slower the game will go. Tip 5. Have fun. Again, yes, this does seem odd to stress, but even while trying to get footage for these guides, I found myself stressing out and not having that much fun. So it might be good to take a break, wait a bit, sit back, drink some coffee, then go back to hunting. Believe me, you will enjoy the game a lot more this way. And as stated in the Survivor Guide, while not recommended, the disconnect button can always get you out of a game you don't want to play. Just don't do it often, and if possible don't do it at all. Just know your limits, and have fun. Mess around a bit so you aren't super serious. That is really all the info I can put in a general guide for killer. I will link a couple of guides for the base killers in the description to give you a head start on those. However, each killer can take many hours to master everything they have to offer. Each killer has their own way of playing depending on their power, so the best advice I can give for playing as any killer is this. However, I left the most important tip for last. If you really want to learn how to master killer, play Survivor. May sound weird, but playing as Survivor will give you a view of what goes through survivors' heads when they are getting chased or when they are just doing gens. This view will let you capitalize on survivors thinking the same in your killer games, so you can know what they are most likely doing. Believe me, you will find this very useful in your future games. With that, this ends the guide for killer. While much more complex and demanding than Survivor, some things are just too complicated for a general guide. So follow the links in the description for any specific guides you are looking for, and check out the Survivor Guide if you haven't already. Hopefully, the intermediate and advanced guides will be uploaded soon, if they are not already. With that, thank you for watching, and as always, we hope to see you out in the fog.